Or good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when it finds you. As usual, just want to talk a little bit. Hope you're having a good day, getting ready to have a good day, or you had a good day. I guess I should say great day. But just want to talk a bit here. That's kind of a follow up to the casualties of the video I did on the casualties of the feminist movement. Because I've said before, many of you have heard it, where they said a three braided strand or cord is hard to break. Three-pronged stool is stronger than a two-leg stool. And so, the truth always comes out. And as the listener of this video, I really want you to listen carefully and try to absorb as much of this as you can. In the beginning of AI technology, lots of people were captivated by the technology on this platform. And I can't speak for anyone else. It was cool in the beginning. But as more creators utilize AI to deliver content, the less interested I become. I thought about trying it on a few of my videos, but I want to remain authentic. I don't want to be fake. Now I'm going to do something I've never really done before, and that's ask you to share this video with your circle of influence, family or friends, or whatever it is. And the reason I ask you to do that is because that's just how important I think this conversation is. And see, the problem is that liars always get a head start before the truth can lace up his shoes. And secrets prefer darkness, but the truth doesn't like to stay buried. It's like when politicians are campaigning. One opponent can lie when he or she feels threatened by his competitor. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. The first person shapes the narrative, and sadly, most of the people believe it. And they do us like that all the time. They pick and choose which black person is going to lie to us. Brown versus Board actually caused many black teachers to lose their jobs. And before Brown versus Board education, we had 82,000 black teachers. And by 1965, 38,000 of those teachers had lost their jobs. So in 10 years, we lost almost an average of 4,000 teachers per year. But as black folks, we didn't care. Our children could now go and sit next to students who didn't like them because they had been conditioned by adults, and be taught by teachers who didn't want to teach them. White people still control the school boards at the time, and they didn't want black teachers educating their white children. So we lost teachers, but we didn't only lose teachers, we lost mentors who looked like us, mentors and teachers who cared for us, mentors and teachers who loved us. And we lost them in order to fit into an environment not created or structured to serve us. And right today, white schools receive $23 billion more in funding each and every year. Generation X, which is my generation, was the first generation of children to go home alone after school. And this was because of the feminist movement and integration. And David Rockefeller said they started and funded the feminist movement so they could send women to work and take their children to control them. Now, is it any wonder that Gen X seems to be the most out of tune with the system? We don't like to be controlled. See, integration broke up the black family and black businesses. Integration rewarded the broken family with welfare and the other strategies, other Great Society programs. Let me slow down a little bit. Because like I said on the casualty of the feminist movement, that was very personal to me because I'm looking at how everything took shape afterwards, and integration fits right in there with that. And so the Great Society program, integration destroyed the patriarchal home structure, which is literally the foundation of society. Now, I'm not talking about tyrannical males. I'm talking about real men. We've had way too many males in charge. Integration led us into my generation, the generation of latchkey kids. We became the first generation of children who didn't have a mother at home when we got out of school. Now, there were homes without fathers before, but it was a small percentage. See, before integration, almost 80% of black households had both parents in the house. Like my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. Her husband was an over-the-road truck driver. And if I remember correctly, talking with her, he fell asleep at the wheel one time near the Oklahoma-Texas border, and he didn't survive. And I never got the chance to meet him because it happened before I was born. And she never remarried, and she took care and raised 5 children alone. And, today, less than 30% of black families have both parents in the home. See, we broke up our families to fit into a system that didn't care about family units. I recently saw a video of a woman bragging that she had 7 kids by 7 men, and she was bragging about how much she gets in food stamps each month. That's not a flex. See, integration in the feminist movement calls that. Now, there's something else that has never been mentioned, at least in all of my studies. In a video I did on the casualties of the feminist movement, I talk about how everything happened in the 70s. Well, when I was researching and studying to see if I was going to run for political office a few years back, I found out that the 70s were a period when child abductions escalated. Right after the latchkey kid generation was created. And mothers hit the workforce en masse. You had no one to pick up the latchkey children from school. You had no one waiting at home for the latchkey children. But predators were watching the latchkey children at all times. And it goes back to what Rockefeller said. They took control of more than the children's minds. See, there used to be a missing child on every paper milk carton back then. You don't see that anymore. I mean, of course they wanted to go plastic everything, because they said paper was bad for the environment, but paper came from the environment, so how is paper going to go back to the environment and be bad for the environment? But anyway, but predators were watching those latchkey children. And integration in the feminist movement created that entire environment. Integration gave us the black management class and called them the Congressional Black Caucus. What has the Congressional Black Caucus done that has benefited us as a people? You can't integrate into a system you don't control and think it's going to benefit you. They steered us into the direction they wanted us to go. They got us to stop building our own economic base and look forward to the system to right everything wrong the system had already done to us. They had us focused on civil rights while they kept increasing their civil rights. And today we literally have neither. We have no civil rights and we have no civil rights. While they had locked us in with laser focus on integrating, Malcolm X, MLK, Fred Hampton, Medgar Evers, freedom rider James Chaney, and journalist Louis Lomax were being eliminated. Lomax was getting ready to expose the Malcolm X elimination and suddenly died in a one vehicle accident. Y'all sure y'all want this modern technology in your vehicle? But anyway, when you integrate into a system not designed by you or designed for you, you are not going to change that system. That system is going to change you. The only thing that changed was what they wrote on paper. The political landscape didn't improve. The social landscape didn't improve. The moral landscape definitely didn't improve. The economic landscape didn't improve. As a matter of fact, integration wanted us to participate in everything except profit sharing. Sojourner Truth said, while the powerful accumulate wealth, influence, and protection, ordinary people are pushed to compete with each other for scraps. See, Integration walked through the front door while welfare kicked the back door in. And see, studying our history in this country, integration was worse than slavery. Now, how can I say that? You, and a lot of you say, "Nah, ain't nothing worse than slavery." Well, I'm gonna tell you why. In my opinion, I think it was worse. During slavery, our ancestors yearned for freedom. Freedom. They wanted to build their own society again because they had a society before slavery started. They wanted to own their own businesses and their own economy. After slavery ended, they did exactly that. Through Jim Crow, through convict leasing, through KKK terrorism, through Christian and police lynch mobs, through union exclusion, through all of the towns and cities burned down and destroyed by whites, which was more than 50. And they managed to work through and survive black codes, redlining, sundown towns, COINTELPRO, what else? Being denied FHA loans and living through land theft. That casino, all that land that the casino was built on was actually black land. But, you know, I mentioned that a little bit in the casualties of the feminist movement video. But the dolls rolling them $5 white Indians that stole our land through that process with the injustice system. But in spite of all of that, our ancestors still continue to build solid families, successful businesses, successful communities. Then Democrats promised us a better life as long as we agreed to let them design what they wanted it to look like. We fell for it. And look what has happened since we started living on their terms. Integration produced the first black political class which had to be loyal to the Democratic Party instead of the people. The Great Society program produced the first black underclass. Sure, many of our people were struggling before then. However, they struggled while fighting to do better. Welfare caused us to not want to fight because the government said they had our back. They said, just let us keep your families apart and the foundation of the family out of the picture, and we got your back. We got integration, and guess what else happened? When our women allowed an outsider, the government, to tell them to put their men out of the family home, the government then ramped up efforts to arrest and imprison black men. The Congressional Black Caucus literally went to Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Bush 1 to ask them to give harsher sentences for black drug offenders. I never saw any record of them going to Carter. Now, I think that was on purpose. Why? Well, guess what the congressional bootlickers started saying later on? Republican caused our black men to go to prison more than whites for the same amount of drugs. And see, what period was that? That was the 70s and the early 80s. I told you in that last video, everything happened right after the period of the 60s in the 70s. Because Nixon was in office in the 70s, Ford 70s, Reagan late 70s, early 80s, Bush 1, was that 88 to 92 or whatever it was. And so now your congressional bootlickers are blaming Republicans for what they kept begging for. More black men in prison. The congressional bootlickers even applauded Bill Clinton and Joe Biden for the 1994 crime bill, which purposely targeted black men. But the Republicans are the problem, according to the congressional bootlickers. And so Democrats ran the slave trade in this country from the political, immoral, and legal side. They lost control of black people for about 70 years from the abolition of slavery to the election of FDR. However, black folks saw Democrats still didn't have their best interests at heart. And see, FDR and Truman got over 70% of the black vote because black folks thought they were going to get in some of those New Deal programs, which were actually slated to target white people only. But neither of them really delivered, so we slowly started gravitating back to our political home base with the Dwight Eisenhower. And the Dwight Eisenhower had black anyway. His mama was black. Ida Lynx, that Black Lynx girl is what they called it. That was a nickname, that Black Lynx girl. And By the way, this country in its current status is 250 years old. Of that 250 years, we as black people have been under control by the Democrats. Where, how do I want to say this? Out of that 250 years, we've been under Democratic control for, is it 178 years? Or what's that? My math is kind of fuzzy. 250 minus 178. Well, y'all get what I'm saying. my brain is kind of twisting right now. But the country is 250 years old, and Democrats have had 70% control of black folks for all but 78 of those years. And like I said, we started moving back with Eisenhower. 70 years from slavery to FDR, and then 8 years under Eisenhower have been the only time we were with the Republican Party. Yet somehow we keep blaming Republicans for everything. Now, I've made my stance very clear plenty of time. Both parties are useless today. All we have now is a uniparty. See, Democrats saw they were losing the grip on black folks again. So they gave black folks LBJ signing Eisenhower's bill and calling it his own after he stripped down the real benefits. Why didn't we support the two bills Eisenhower signed? Because black people listened to hand-picked Roy Wilkins, who told them not to support the Eisenhower civil rights bills. Why do you think the entire civil rights crew hated Adam Clayton Powell? Powell said what Eisenhower did was the best thing that had happened to us since slavery had ended. But the Democrats couldn't allow us to go back to our political home base because they knew control of us would be lost forever. And had we went back to the Republican Party, we would be calling the Democratic Party the racist party right today, just like it's flipped with the Republicans, because we've been so loyal to the Democrats that the Republicans are the racists. See, Wilkins said Eisenhower bills didn't do enough for black folks. Well, Adam Clayton Powell was responsible for a lot of that legislation. And it was actually more in both of Eisenhower's civil rights bills than it was in LBJ's bill, which he took from Eisenhower, stripped it down, and then signed it with the bootlicker standing next to it. And so Wilkins said Eisenhower bills didn't do enough for black. But guess what party was controlling the Senate and the House at the time? Democrats. See, Wilkins was handpicked too. See, the black boule is not just a name. They are black people that are given the microphone and platform to speak to us and for us. And practically every last one of them is a sorority or fraternity member. And then you have to go back and look at how sororities and fraternities are offshoots of Freemasonry. See, I remember when I was in college, they kept telling me my job opportunities would increase if I joined a fraternity. But I didn't want to join a fraternity because I watched how they went through some of these rituals, and I said, man, I'm not fit to sit here and let no dudes humiliate me just to be a part of them. You got to have a bunch of low self-esteem to be joining them dudes and allow them to treat you the way they do. I don't play like that. And so I told myself when I got to college, I'll never join one of them low self-esteem organizations. But, you know, but like I said, when that was me in college, you know, everybody look at things different. That's just the way I looked at it back then. That's the way I still look at it now. And like I said, you know, and I know a lot of good buddies of mine at U of H, you know, join them, and you know, I have nothing against them, nothing at all. But you know, I was thoroughly shocked, you know, of one specifically, you know, joining the Omegas, you know. I mean, but you know, anyway, that's enough on that. But while we were distracted with integration, civil rights, and the feminist movement, Democrats were planning and strategizing. See, they had to come up with a way to not only get us back on the Democratic plantation, but to make sure we didn't run off again. And see, that's when you got the black-faced Democratic Congressional Caucus. The Congressional Black Caucus has never been more than a clown show. See, you know how whites used to do those black-faced comedy shows back in the day, those minstrel shows? That's your Congressional Black Caucus. They gave us many faces that looked like ours to make us believe we had a dog in the fight, but our dog turned out to be a stuffed animal. See, why was MLK promoted and not Malcolm X? See, the reason we can't let go of civil rights and integration is because we don't want to accept the truth. See, we were taught to love MLK and what he supposedly did for us. He knew what his role was when he started. He was to give us the illusion that the system cared about us. And after he got paid well during that period, he finally got a conscience and saw he was being used as a tool. And when he was no longer useful, he tried to run off the plantation. And those black faces know what their role is. Their role is to lie to us and protect the system. And they're compensated well. They literally send them to classes to teach them that, you know, they send them to class. All your black politicians go to a special class. I heard Judge Joe Brown talk about that. He went into detail on that. And, you know, and this, you know, and even MLK was attending classes at a certain school. Now, I had found out about that years before I saw Judge Joe Brown talk about all black folks have to attend a class if they're going to go into if they get elected into this political system. You know, to tell them and teach them what they're supposed to do. And but we were taught to love MLK. And y'all remember when that thing we told Harry Belafonte, I believe I led our people into a burning house. By that time we were stuck inside and the house was already on fire and we couldn't get out at that point. And so those black faces know what their role is, to protect the system. And you know, King's attending those classes at that school is well documented if you want to look it up. I mean, I know it's tough to hear because we love us some MLK. I remember when in elementary school, middle school, high school, Black History Month, the only thing we knew about Black history was MLK. It was only when I got out of the school system and started studying on my own, I started finding out about all that other black history that they purposely hid from us. And so, but like I said, I know it's tough to hear, but what did we actually get? We got the right to compete in the system they created with one set of rules for them and another set of rules for us. Before integration, we built our own and made our own rules. But what happened when we did that? Whites kept destroying what we built. It was due to jealousy, but more than anything else, it was about control. If they could destroy what we built continually, they could eventually wear us down physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and morally. Once we were worn down, all of a sudden they offered us something called civil rights and told us we would be made whole. What we got was a dependent relationship. We depended on them to provide everything for us that we needed, and they depended on us and our economics to sustain their companies and lifestyle and wealth and our obedience to their system. We didn't need to run to them for car loans and student loans. A lot of our black men bought their cars out of pocket. See, those were in-house issues. Student loans, we took care of sending our children to school. We didn't need to go to their system to get there. And so, like I said, those were in-house issues. See, we integrated into their university system. And by doing that, it meant we could now solidify another income stream to the system for them by taking out student loans from them, from their banks to attend their schools and pay their children for however long it takes to pay the student loans back. And right today, whites earn 27% more than us on jobs. So black folks, You know, you think you balling out here. I earn 75,000 a year. I earn 100,000 a year. I earn 150,000 a year. Okay, let's say you earn 75,000 a year. Now, if they earning 27% more than you, that means they're earning 95,000 if they're white, and they don't even have to have college degrees. See, integration happened. We can't do anything about that at this point. But what are we going to do now? See, we need to remove all of our energy from the political game. They haven't delivered. Now, this might be tough. We need to remove all of our finances from the black churches and the white churches and whatever other color church you attend. They haven't delivered. We need to start to build our families. We need to start to build our economics. We need to start to build our neighborhoods. We need to work real hard to get out of debt, because y'all not going to like what's coming. Oh, trust me on it. Y'all not going to like what's coming. So the best thing for you to do is get out of debt and stop being a slave to this system. See, but the main thing we must do is have a mental and spiritual enema. Our churches have failed us largely. Your pastor bootlickers have failed us largely. They ain't taught us nothing. But you got your pastor and wife anniversary. You got your pastor and wife appreciation. Y'all can go out here and rent limos for pastors and wives, and y'all can go out here and send your pastor and wives on trip, but your family's struggling. Are we not stupid? They haven't delivered. So you better work on getting out of debt. See, nothing has changed for us because we are still thinking the same way that put us in our current predicament. That thought process has and continues to fail us. We think running to the polls is going to work. How has that worked out for us since 1964? All of this promise changing right today. Blacks make up only 12.5% of political representation of this country, and they're trying to strip that away from you. And the system keeps trying to minimize it, over and over again. You see, we have nothing to show for anything. We got more votes. We still have no political power. We got more degrees. We still get picked after white high school dropouts. We got more preachers. We have the lowest marriage rate and the highest abortion rate. We got all these jobs, and now we have no economic power or businesses. On paper, we got a whole lot of rights, but in doing so, everything went wrong. I'll talk to you later.